Welcome back everyone to another installment of Formula Drift Insider. I am Ryan Sage, and on this week's show, we take a look back at round 2 at Road Atlanta and break down some of the insanity of the weekend. First, it goes without saying that Road Atlanta is one of everyone's favorite FD rounds. I mean, the track is amazing, the venue is beautiful, and the fans are some of the best in the world. So it's a great recipe for an excellent weekend. But as history has shown, Road Atlanta also has ingredients to make it a wild ride in more than one way. First, let's start with the rain. It rained, and then it went away, and then it came back, and then it went away again. The rain made for inconsistent track conditions all night, and that would most certainly play a factor in a few battles. But let's start with a few highlights that became fodder for more than just a few online comments. Before the rain started, we saw Michael Essa and Corey Hosford battle. Now on the first run, it appears Essa goes off course, but Formula Drift rules state that for 2 tires to be considered off and thus a 0, both tires must clearly be off. Well, what looks like 2 tires off here doesn't look like 2 tires off here, and 2 tires must clearly be off for the run to be a 0. That is the standard that the judges have set, and it gives the drivers the benefit of the doubt and to let the battle happen rather than nitpick over tire drops. This rule was instituted after a controversial 2-tire drop call for Justin Pollock in Seattle last year. And since then, the judges have stated loudly that both tires must clearly be off. And the reason why this is because from one angle things can look so clear, but from another angle you can tell that the former angle was deceiving. So it must be clear. Either way, Essa did not make it easy as he suffered in the second half of his chase run. But in the end, 2 judges gave him the win and 1 judge voted one more time. Next, we saw a battle that had big championship implications. Daijiro Yoshihara versus Conrad Grunwald. The battle at first glance seemed pretty straightforward. Dai leads, pulls a slight gap at the end. Conrad does a sick entry, has a good run, and pulls a similar but smaller gap at the end of his run. So, one more time? Dai wins? No. Conrad wins and wins unanimously. Why? Well, let's take a closer look. On the first run on initiation, you can see here that Dai has a major correction in that he straightens his wheels back to 0 degrees. This is a big correction that isn't all that apparent in regular speed, partly due to Dai's black wheels. But going back in slow motion, it can be clearly seen. The rest of the run is decent for Dai, but lack of angle on the return helps him pull away from Conrad. On Conrad's lead run, he has one of the best entries of the night, has a very precise line, and is still able to pull a gap on Dai while maintaining angle out of the car. Contrasting the runs from both drivers in detail make this call much easier to understand. Conrad wins. So with Dai out, this was an opportunity for vaughn+gittin+jr. to take the lead in the championship. But he would have to get through Frederick Osbo, who has been on fire as of late. Now at this point in the competition, the rain had been coming down intermittently on the track. The track was very unstable to say the least. And that, at minimum, contributed to one of the most amazing things Formula Drift has ever seen occur at a live event. I'll just show you here so you can see for yourself. Now what happened by accounts from both drivers is that Frederick cautiously entered the first turn so as not to spin or go off course due to the rain. Vaughn, following close behind, was unable to adjust to the movement of Frederick's vehicle and made contact with Frederick's car. And then like right out of a demolition derby, Vaughn's vehicle drove up the left-hand side of Frederick's vehicle and landed cleanly on the other side, taking Frederick's bumper in the collision. To everyone's surprise, both vehicles were fine, and both drivers, being the competitors that they are, finished the run. The crowd was going absolutely crazy. Now, from a rule standpoint, what happens next is that when there is contact on course, the judges must find a driver who is at fault. Once that is determined, then we can know how to proceed. The judges gave fault to Vaughn, and so Frederick, according to FD rules, had as much time as he needed to get the car back to the line. After a short while, Frederick's team got the car back to the line, and off we went again. This time, all Frederick had to do is not zero in the next run, and he would be the victor. Now, as fate would have it, Frederick popped third gear in his transmission and would zero out, and the judges would have no other choice, with Vaughn with the zero and Frederick with the zero, for a one more time battle. Sadly, we did not know that Frederick had popped third gear independently of his wreck with Vaughn at the time, and so it was thought that there was still damage to his car that caused him to zero. This in fact was not the case, and it goes to show us all why having the correct information is of utmost importance in our quest to be accurate in reporting what takes place in the competition. Even if Frederick's car did have sustained damage due to the wreck, according to FD rules, the driver not at fault gets as much time as they need to fix the car, unless it is not drivable. So that means it is expected that a driver who fixes his car and comes back to the line has a car ready for competition. Vaughn would go on to beat Frederick and would set up a huge opportunity for him to pull a points gap on Daijiro Yoshihara. Meanwhile, with all this chaos going on, there were two drivers that were dominating their sides of the bracket, and those drivers were Daigo Saito and Darren McNamara. Lots of people are starting to say that this is D-Mac's comeback season after last year's hard wreck at Long Beach essentially shut him down. This year, he is showing signs of brilliance and reminding people just how great of a driver he truly is. He was able to mow through Odi Bachis, Ryan Turk, and the surging Michael Essa all the way to the finals. Meanwhile, Daigo Saito got through Forrest Wang, Kyle Mohan, and then eventually he beat Vaughn+Gittin Jr. to meet D-Mac in the finals. Vaughn+Gittin Jr. versus Essa for third place wasn't much of a battle, as Essa made a huge mistake in the chase part of his run, giving Vaughn an easy victory. Meanwhile, in the finals, it was a bit of the same. As Darren was chasing down Daigo Saito, he was blinded by smoke that caused him to lose focus for just a split second, and he ended up hitting Daigo from the rear and eventually giving Daigo his first win of the season. Overall, it was another amazing event for Formula Drift. The fans came out in droves despite the rain, and the competition was certainly a session we will never soon forget. For the championship, we see Vaughn+Gittin Jr. jump to an early season lead, with Daigo Saito in second and Darren McNamara in third. Daijiro Yoshihara falls all the way back to fifth. As for the Manufacturers Championship and the Tire Championship, both Ford and Falcon are still on the top after 2 rounds. And with that, we are done here for this episode of Insider. Our next episode will feature highlights and happenings from round 3 at Palm Beach International Raceway, just 1 week away. Until then, you can like us on Facebook or follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And if you have any questions for me about the show or anything else, hit me up right here. Till next time.